Why are we siding Israel every time we talk about what we're supposed to do?
A horrible one-sided deal that should never, ever have been made. It didn't bring calm, it didn't bring peace, and it never will. Those words are as true today as they were 7 years ago today when President Trump said them, driving a stake through the heart of Barack Obama's disastrous nuclear deal with Iran. That deal was one-sided, in bad faith, and did nothing to stop Iran's march to a nuclear weapon. In fact, as Prime Minister Netanyahu said, it didn't block Iran's path to a nuclear weapon, it paved the path.
Look, if Israel and Iran have this conflict that's going on between the two, that's something that should be between those two. Again, since 1979, Iran and Israel have been in this proxy war. Yes, I know that Iran all the time says death to Israel, death to America, and all that. I got it. What do you think they're going to say when there's all these assassinations left and right? If you don't want them to do some of those things, then you might try, I don't know, not killing them all the time, not threatening them all the time, and taking them, like destroying their embassies, assassinating their people in other countries, assassinating people in their country. So if you do those things, and that's between them, okay? That's between Iran and Israel. If they want to take that action and they want to take the risks for their potential consequences, that's a sovereign decision of theirs. I have no say in that. I have some opinions. I won't share them. It doesn't make any difference. I'm not an Israeli. I'm an American. So what Israel does with its national security, with its armed forces, within its constitution, within its laws, that's up to them, as it is with Iran itself. We don't have a threat from Iran. They don't threaten us. They are a relatively middling power in the Middle East, and they are more than balanced by other adversarial regimes. They have been for a long time. By the way, it used to be Iraq was one of them, but we helped Iran out there by doing regime change. We get rid of Saddam Hussein, and instead of having those guys bouncing each other out, now then Iraq is an Iran-friendly country. They even have some of their people inside their security architectures who are Iranian, pro-Iranian. So well done on that, guys. Good job helping us out by actually making it easier on Iran. I won't go down that path too much further, but you get the point there. Well, now it's starting to look out that maybe some things are changing here now with President Trump, because we have Steve Witkoff, who has been doing, listen, I know he takes a lot of hit for being, he's a real estate guy or whatever, but look, in terms of diplomacy, he's been doing a great job since he came into office across the board here. And I give props to him. Nobody's perfect, but man, compared to what we've had for a long time, I think he's been doing a really good job. And he said in an interview with Breitbart a couple of days ago, that he's a little worried about neocon warmongers.
The neocon element believes that war is the only way to solve things. And the president believes that his force of personality, the way he is going to respond to situations, can bend people to do things in a much better way in the interest of the United States government. And I believe in that too.
Now there's... We can quibble over whether President Trump can bend people outside of our country to his will. That's a whole lot more difficult than it sounds, because you're not going to bend anybody anywhere unless they get something out of it. Like I said a minute ago with negotiations, you want to get something, then you have to be prepared to give something too. And unfortunately, in our political ecosystem, all you can do is take from Iran. You can't give anything. So we'll see how effective that's going to be. I've shown you from February where the Ayatollah said that they're not going to negotiate anything around their security to the United States. And if we threaten them, they're going to threaten us back and all that. But since that time, Witkoff has had some success at negotiating and talking to the Iranians. They said they're willing to talk. Terrific. Let's go down that path. In that same interview, Witkoff also expanded a little bit on this whole neocon stuff. But at the end of this, it's a little bit more problematic. Watch this.
We've seen is, again, these attacks have continued from these critics. They don't want to see peace reached in a lot of these places. They don't want to see a deal with the Iranians. They like conflict. They don't want to see a deal reached with Gaza. They don't want to see a war end in Ukraine. What say you?
I say it's confirmation bias. They believe they have a bias towards military interaction, and so in their minds, anything that is of a military solution, of a military nature to be a solution to that problem. And you hear this all the time. You hear people say, no, we have to go treat that person with force. The Iranians are going to manipulate you in a dialogue, and so you're not going to be effective there. They may attempt to manipulate me. I don't think that they're going to be able to manipulate me. In that particular example, if the Iranians make the mistake of thinking that they can procrastinate at the table, then they won't see much of me, and the alternative, as the president says, will be a bad alternative for them.
So it's unclear, and maybe intentionally so, what a bad alternative means if they don't get to a negotiated settlement. Because look, you have to understand what we're asking Iran to do. First of all, let's just take a look at that specific situation here. We're asking them to have no enrichment capacity at all, not even for civilian purposes. We're asking them to limit their long-range missile systems. We're asking them to get rid of all of their reprocessing stuff. They have to take it somewhere else. They're not going to be able to keep any of it here, which will certainly preclude even the possibility that they could later go to a nuclear weapons program. So that would achieve that objective from our perspective, but then it would also completely leave Iran vulnerable. It seems very unlikely to me that we have any carrots to give. Even if Trump wasn't worried about what anybody else would think, and he gave a bunch of other carrots, I can't think of enough carrots that we could offer Iran to make them follow in the footsteps of Libya when Muammar Gaddafi gave away all his stuff, and then years later, and we gave him some stuff, by the way. There was a lot of economic benefits that Bush gave at the time that seemed to make it look like, well, it turned out a win-win situation. Well, we know how that turned out, because when the next president came in, Barack Obama, he supported a military operation that helped bring down Gaddafi, and then he was murdered in the streets. And yeah, that's not the motive you want to use. And ironically, and maybe not ironically, Netanyahu has been using that, said, yes, let's follow the Libya model. Now, I think, my personal opinion is that Netanyahu is saying that, knowing how abhorrent that would be to any other nation on the planet, because he wants them to say no. He wants them to not agree to it because he wants to go in. And we know that. I've shown you many sound clips over the months where Netanyahu absolutely wants to take out Iran. He wants to solve the problem once and for all. Naftali Bennett, so once in a 50-year opportunity, all that kind of stuff. So we know where the Israeli side is. They're not very shy about talking about where it is. But the question is, where is the United States? Now, Witkoff's talking about right now that Trump is willing to negotiate, and it seems like he's kind of backing down from his rhetoric. And here's the problem. He is backing down from his rhetoric. It's not an impression. Here is Trump in March the 7th, so 2 months ago, was pretty bellicose himself.
You know, we're down to final strokes with Iran. That's going to be an interesting time. And we'll see what happens. But we're down to the final moments. We're at final moments. You can't let them have a nuclear weapon. It's an interesting time in the history of the world. But we have a situation with Iran that something's going to happen very soon. Very, very soon. You'll be talking about that pretty soon, I guess. And hopefully we can have a peace deal. You know, I'm not speaking out of strength or weakness. I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other. But the other will solve the problem.
Yeah, but will it solve the problem? You may recall around that same time is when he made that real famous statement that if Iran doesn't agree to what we want, there will be bombing, was the word that he used there. So that's what he was saying 2 months ago. But now all of a sudden, he's kind of backing down. You may recall when Netanyahu was in the Oval Office last month, the two were sitting there, and Trump had true socialed out that, we see eye to eye on all these issues, et cetera. And then all of a sudden, he seemed to shift while Netanyahu was sitting in the seat there on the cameras, where he said, yeah, we're going to start negotiating with Iran, and we're going to send Witkoff and some other diplomats, and we're going to talk at very high levels, et cetera. And by accounts afterwards, it would shock Netanyahu, because he's like, wait, what do you mean? I thought we were one and the same on this, which is basically we're going to go and try to destroy Iran. There was some news that has come out that says Tulsi Gabbard and several others helped talk Trump off the ledge and made him realize that if you go through with this military plan, which was supposed to have happened apparently in early May, then there would be all these really bad consequences for the United States. And apparently that worked. And he recognized, okay, well, I don't want to go down a path that's going to make things worse for the United States or even him personally. So now he's kind of backed off. And here in recent days, we've seen he's getting ready for a Middle East trip next week. And by the way, he's not planning on going to Israel. That by itself is like, wait, what? You're not going to go see that? That used to be the first stop you would make, that an American president would make on any trip. And in this from the Middle East Eye, Gary, if you can throw that first full screen up there, you can see that that's making a lot of people in Israel really nervous because Trump may have several decisions in the lead up to his Gulf visit that have ignored Israeli interest. And he doesn't want Trump to spoil his Gulf visit. So Trump has some interests that are in America's interests that diverge from Israel's interest, and it's making Israel really nervous. Now, obviously, I applaud that. If there's interests that are going to help us, if making peace among various countries or various issues and solving those is in American interest, that's what the American president is supposed to do.